Sound workshop with Aaron Bouchard. Awesome, and he's going to talk about sound. He has a nice demo for you. You come with those kinds of questions, and I love being here. Sorry, I'm a bad host. I don't like being a host.
So hi, I'm Aaron. I have some things to talk to you about today in terms of sound, but Dan has actually put together a fantastic demo later today, so I don't have to talk to you today about just theoreticals. You can actually practice and try some things out, which is fantastic. So thank you, Dan, for setting all this up. So a little about me. So I went to college for philosophy. That money's gone now, so I don't highly recommend it unless you're going to go directly into academia. But if you choose to, you can. I met a lot of people who did film, and some of my best friends did film, and I wanted to hang out with them on the weekend. So it was always going and helping them out with whatever projects they were working on at the time. And they always needed somebody. Everybody wanted to do cameras. Everybody wants to do cameras. Totally get it. Sexy, it's interesting, it's, when you see pictures of people on set, you see the people with the cameras in their hands. They always needed somebody to hold the boom. I took it, didn't care, just wanted to hang out with my friends. Graduated from college, tried to do something else, economy tanked, had no job, so went on to Craigslist back before Craigslist became an absolute flaming dumpster fire that it is now. Started getting jobs, just free jobs, helping people out with their short films, and eventually helping people out with short films eventually turned into $50 and turned into $100. And then somebody I worked with got me onto a really low budget commercial. I'm like, oh wait, there's actually money to be had with this. All right, interesting. So slowly over time, built up more gear, built up more skill set. And I got into really doing corporate commercial stuff for quite a while. So a lot of corporate stuff is interviewing the CEO of a business as he talks about yearly profits right before they lay off half the employees. Yeah. It's sometimes it's you're in a manufacturer and they're showing off whatever so they can show it to other people so they can do other stuff. So a lot of corporate stuff is just internal. It never sees the light of day. So you go and you do the job, you send it off to whomever, and then it just disappears forever. And then you get a paycheck and you cash that and it's fantastic. But I knew that I wanted to get back at doing narrative because I thinking back to my friends in college, I liked being on a project with people. I liked working with people. There's a feeling of accomplishment when you finish a major project. It's a euphoria. And I forget who said it, but there's a quote that every film is a lifetime. And that's how it feels sometimes. So you begin something, you end something, and you think about very specific points in your life. Sorry, I'm not holding this directly in front of my face. You think about very particular points in your life, and you're like, I can remember when I was on X project, or I remember when that was going on because I was on X. And so there's, maybe it's selfishness, I don't know, but I wanted to get back into doing narrative work. So eventually I worked my way into getting into 481. And as luck would have it, a guy that I had worked on a short film with 8 or 9 years prior was in the sound department. In order to get into 481, you have to have a sponsor who is within the department that you are trying to get into. So I contacted the guy, he got me in, and again, as luck would have it, there was a pilot that never went anywhere that started up. He couldn't be the person on it, but he recommended me to the mixer who was on it. And the mixer brought me on, and through that mixer, I met so many other people, and I've worked, I want to say ever since, but, as we will discuss, the industry's in a state of flux at the moment. So let's talk about the department, shall we? Who's in the department? So a typical department is 3 people. So you have mixer, boom, op, utility. Mixer is just what it sounds like. Mixer is you take in all the audio, you record it, you deal with production, you you go on the early location scouts, you're in the production meetings, you ask the questions, and hopefully you're the one that has the plan for how everything is going to work. And you have the ability to come up with those plan A, B, C, D, E, and so on and so forth. Boom operator is the one that everybody knows. They're the person on set that holds the mic over their head. I forget if I wrote it in here. What I tell people is being a boom operator is like playing chess. I can give you the pieces, I can tell you what to do, but it's going to take you years to master. It is not as simple as holding the boom. It involves so much more. Sound utility is what I did for years when I first got into the union. It is sort of the catch-all for everything else. So if the mixer and boom op are, I put 2 eyes in mixer, that's interesting. The boom operator and mixer are dealing with other things. They usually pass off all other duties to the sound utility. Sometimes, depending on who the mixer is, they will just tell the sound utility, I want you to be on set a half hour before call. I want you to bring everything on set. I want everything set up. I'm going to show up. I'm going to do the job. I'm going to leave. And then you're going to put everything away, which is fine. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And it's also a show that they trust you. So because it's such a small department, you work with the same people over and over and over and over again. Downside, because it's such a small department, if you're trying to break in, it's extremely hard because nobody wants to work with people that they haven't worked with before. The playback operator is usually not somebody who's on set often, but are usually brought in for very particular things. Big scenes that involve music or anything that involves earwigs. So sometimes actors don't like to learn their lines, Liam Neeson, and they'll bring in a playback operator to just put an earwig in, and then they'll read their lines off, like in the next room or something like that, into their ear right before they say their line. You didn't hear it from me. What you need is kind of a tough question, and I was thinking about this for quite a while, even right up through this first presentation of what do you tell somebody that they need when they're first starting out? And I feel like this is as simple as it possibly can get. Boom pole, microphone, XLR, headphones, a mixer, or a mixer recorder. Anything more than that, if you're doing this all by yourself, is going to be overkill. And we can get into more later. Also, if you have questions during this, by all means, feel free to ask. I just can't in good faith tell you that you need this, this, and this because gear doesn't matter. Gear does not matter. You can have the best gear, you can have the best everything, but if you don't have a plan for how to use that gear, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't. With that, I feel like the one thing everybody's going to ask about are lavalier mics. Lavalier mics are, especially if you're first starting out, they involve a lot of practice. They involve a lot of practice. They involve a lot of know-how of how to use a lav mic, how to set up a lav mic, how to place a lav mic. And if you don't have that capability going into a job, then it's like you're splitting, you're multitasking on something that you don't have full knowledge of. And it's not to say that you shouldn't learn at some point. You should. If you want to take the time and do it, do it. But don't go into your first job or don't go into a job thinking you need to have these things and you're going to learn on the day, because there's a chance that you're going to fall flat in your face. And it's not a guarantee. It's just, it happens to everybody at some point. Trust me. Lav mics are a beast. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. The pros, you have great control. You can put, depending on whatever the camera's doing, you can have a mic on somebody on the other side of the room and you'll be able to pick them up, no problem. When you're mixing it, you're not relying completely on the boom. You can use your labs. You can do other things. You can do all sorts of things when mixing. And when they get into editing, they have all these options. The one the one video I tried to dig up that I couldn't find anywhere is there's a great little behind the scenes video on the film Traffic, Steven Soderbergh's film from the early 2000s, where the sound mixer or the sound editor was talking about how he ended up editing a scene. And he showed how the mix came in. And then he showed, well, if I add this lab track in, which was like these two guys running, if I add this lab track in, now you hear this guy under his breath just swearing and yelling the entire time. So, not yelling, but like swearing and muttering to himself. So like, what does this add to the character? Does it add something else? Do we need this? And he goes, I'm going to put it in, just see how they like it, because it makes this character seem more frustrated than if we were just seeing this long shot of this person running. So cons, like I said again, are just, labs involve a lot, just a lot of stuff. What worked last time is not necessarily going to work this time, or the time after that. Not all costumes will allow it. Actors don't always like them. They don't always want them. And sometimes it's a very political situation. You have to play your cards right. If you find a reason for them not to wear it, you don't force them to wear it. And if they don't want to wear it, or if they are being difficult, or they want to punish production, sometimes they'll take it out on you by not doing something like that. So it puts you in a weird place. And sometimes they just don't sound great. You know, a boom mic is a boom mic. It picks up a room. It's full. It's what the room sounds like. A lav mic sounds like a reality show, because that's all reality shows are lav mics. You watch anything, it just has this boxy, very close sound to it. That's not what you want to hear when you go to a movie, in my opinion. But, so what should you focus on? You show up to a location for the first time, and hopefully you get to show up to a location prior to shooting for the first day. But say you have or say you do show up to a location for the first day. Things you should focus on are refrigerators, heating and cooling units, any music that's playing. Are you in a coffee shop? Is there a coffee shop next door? Is there a grocery store next door? Asking these sorts of questions. Is there traffic outside? How consistent is the traffic? The crew can be noisy. These guys. And if you're shooting in a neighborhood, the neighbors. People love to mow their lawns at the most inconvenient times of day or night, weekdays, weekends, doesn't matter. It does not matter. But always be polite. Always be polite. Politeness could go the extra mile, especially if everybody else in the production is all over the place and they already have a bad relationship with the production. But if you are nice to the people at the location, if it's not a homeowner or something like that, it can go a really, 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 really long way. If you offer to take care of the thing, if you offer to plug the thing back in, whatever it is, if you offer to turn it on between setups or whatever, you have to do what you have to do in order to get the best audio possible. With traffic, it's a little different. You have to pick and choose your battles with stuff like that. Is it consistent? Is it something that could be taken out in editing? Is it stop and go? A couple of years ago, I was on a film where they decided to shoot right at a busy four-way intersection. So you could hear cars coming to a stop, stopping, revving back up and driving away. So now you have to ask production, we're hearing this outside. Is this something that we have to shoot during this time, or is this something that we can shoot at a later point in the day when there is less traffic? These are questions you have to ask. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be no. 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, this is the location. Deal with it, but you tried and you asked. That way, when editorial comes back around, they go, hey, why does it sound like there's a highway outside? And you say, because there is. There is a highway. Okay. So, a location, you can only deal with a location's quirks to a certain point. Being a boom operator, like I said before, it's more than just holding the mic. When I work with my boom operator, Mike Bamford, I like to have him on set at all times. He is the eyes and ears for me on set because I'm not always directly on set. If I'm working off of my cart, Usually I'm a room over, maybe 2 rooms over. Maybe I'm possibly 400 or 500 feet away, depending on what's going on. I need somebody who's attentive. You need somebody who's attentive, or you need to be attentive, rather. Things change. Just because the way that they block something is not always going to be the way that's going to go. Things change. If they go, we're going to light this, okay, well, assumably you know the lights are going to come from over here, but if you're not on set and you're not watching, you leave set before they start shooting. Things change. Now what you thought, what you thought was going to happen doesn't happen, and you show up, your plan is shot, and you don't have another plan. So having somebody who's there, attentive, and can communicate with other productions, or other people on production. Sometimes you need things moved. Sometimes it depends on, or sometimes there are situations where you need parts of the set moved, so in order for you to do your job. And you need to be able to talk to the right people. You need to talk to set deck about moving something like that. You can do it yourself, but it's a courtesy thing. You don't want to pick up an expensive piece of equipment or expensive piece of set deck and move it and then find out later that that was never supposed to be moved, or you ripped something or something like that. You need to talk to the camera operators, find out what their plan is. That way you can accommodate. We are sort of the water between the rocks, because the rocks are always going to be permanent. But we have to work around that.
Yes. Can you say communication with your operator? Are you relying on the radio, or are you mad or muffled?
So with my setup, I have in my cart, I have a private line. So he has a push-to-talk mic, like a referee mic on him. So it's not always on, but I have a private line that goes directly to him. He hears just the boom on his end, and he also hears me when I talk to him. And that doesn't go out to anybody else that has a Comtech or an IFB. And that way, we can be in communication. I can even talk to him during the shot. So if he's starting to dip in, I can be like, get up. And if he has questions for me, even before we go, I guess he might be like, hey, what's B camera doing? I'll say, it's a close-up, shoulders to haircut, something like that. That way he knows, because sometimes a camera will fish around the last second, and then they'll find their frame. So it's a lot of communication back and forth. It's not just, we saw it, we know what to do, let's move on. Does that make sense? Okay. Being a mixer, consistency. You shouldn't jump sources depending on the shot. You shouldn't jump sources depending on a take. Sources being, you shouldn't jump from your boom over to your lav. If you start using your boom, finish the scene using a boom, unless something catastrophic happens. If you start on a wide shot, you're going to use your lavs more than likely, just because it's a wide shot. But also, assumably, they're not going to jump back to the wide shot very often. A typical scene will be start wide, maybe end wide. You know that they use the beginnings and end, and for the rest of it, they're going to jump into the middle. I mean, it's not always, it's just sort of the working theory. Again, theoreticals. But once you get in for those close-ups, then you'll be able to use your boom, hopefully, depending on lighting, depending on all these other elements. And when they turn around on the other person or whatever, you'll be able to use the boom on that. So it's about consistency. You don't want suddenly in the take 3 just to decide that you're going to jump over to the person's lav, because in editing, they'll say, okay, I liked that part of that take, I like that part of that take, and I like the part of that take, but that sounds wildly different. And even then, when you're watching something and you're watching them cut back and forth, it takes people out of the scene. You don't realize how much bad sound will take people out of the scene, or even consistent sound will take people out of the scene. Usable tracks. Usable tracks are just what it sounds like. It's the stuff that you give over to editorial, meaning that it's stuff that you feel confident that they will be able to cut the film with. It's not a guarantee that every day is going to be perfect, but you're always going to try your best, and you're going to make sure that they have at least something to work with, depending on what happens. And then communication with production. And that goes back to the asking questions, going to the locations, staying in communication with other people. I was on a film a couple years ago where they decided about 4 weeks into a 6-week production that they were going to add a musical number in about 4 days. Okay, nobody told me about this. So then over the course of the day, between shooting, I had to email the music supervisor and go, what are we doing for the music? Am I doing playback? Do I need to bring somebody in to do playback? What are we tracking this live? Are we recording this person singing live? Are we recording them playing their guitar live? What's happening with this? So it's not as simple as like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. And then you'll figure it out on the day. There are so many things involved before you show up for something like that. And then sometimes it's the location. Sometimes locations change. Sometimes they lose locations, and you just want to make sure that you talk to somebody. Okay, so we're not shooting at, the grocery store in Dorchester anymore. We're shooting out in Quincy. What does that mean for us? Nothing. It's fine. Okay, great. But you just don't want to show up on the day and have them go, oh, yeah, the grocery store is going to be open, and we can't turn off the music. Also, they're going to be grinding meat in the back the entire time. Okay, all right. So why didn't you tell me beforehand? Well, you didn't ask. All right, well, got me there. So it happens. It does. But it's just staying in communication with them. It's not just doing your job. You are a department head. You are part of production to a certain point. I have a couple scenes for stuff that I have worked on, and I figured we could watch them, and I could talk a little bit about them. So, watch a little bit of this. Don't have to. Oh, it turned off. Hey, thanks. Boom mic reliance and environmental awareness actually works out great because Dan's situation, he has a mirror in the back, and this scene has a mirror in the back. So when we were rehearsing this, it was something that my boom ops had to be aware of. So watch a little bit of this and.
What do you want?
My text. I texted you.
I didn't get it. I blocked you.
It's everything.
Goodbye.
Just let me get my talks and I'll be go.
Hot supposed to wear for the stress wedding?
Yes. All right, my talks. What? Hello. All right. Who the hell is this? I wrote for you. I'm her Black Rocks.
Boyfriend.
She broke up less than 24 hours. That's already naked died in your apartment at home.
We didn't break up. You broke up with me.
Wait, you broke up with her right before New Year's Eve. We're dead.
I know, right? Thank you.
The naked you is calling me dick. For what? Do you have a problem with that? Trust me. You should hope that I don't.
No. You will not threaten my guest.
What's going on here? Are you drunk? This all you do?
So I think
You've drunk it some day and picked up some loser. Actually, I'm a lawyer, so.
you are.
I don't think that guy's correct. He could be a serial killer. He could be crazy. I'm not making it.
He can be naked and he wants to be naked. You got
All right. So, we have a mirror in the back here that we had to be aware of the entire time. So nothing could be on this side of camera at all. Our actor doesn't really like wearing a lav mic if she didn't have to. And we have 3 people in the scene, and one of them happens to be naked. So I had to have 2 boom ops out in the scene. I had to have one completely on Thomas the entire time. And then the other one had to be jumping between James and Emma for the other shot. So even though they weren't on camera, I still had both of them out there. So one was completely on Thomas, and the other was on the people off camera because they're still performing off camera. And then when Emma jumps around to the other side, then the boom op had to swing between the 2 of them. So it's, you read the script and you hear, so-and-so falls down the stairs and you go, oh boy. and they're not wearing clothes. Oh, this will be fun. This will be interesting. So what you read and then how they decide they're going to block it and shoot it are going to be two different things. So you hope they're not going to get too wide. You hope they're not going to stay in that shot for too long. And then you hope that you don't have to worry about shadows as well. I think, if I remember correctly, this was a couple of years ago, I think we had shadow issues on the wall too. So we had to ask lighting, electrics, if they could put up a courtesy. A courtesy is a very light lag that doesn't cut off too much of the light, but will block it enough that we can still be up there. And those aren't things that you can always ask for because you don't want to manipulate and you don't want to interrupt whatever the director of photography is doing too much. But it's something, if it's going to help you do your job and it's important, then sometimes you just have to do it. All right, let's jump over to booming and plant mics.
So, ladies and gentlemen, your final exams. Make for cooking. I can tell by your faces that many of you are shocked at the outcome. But I am never have a lot because I've had the misfortune of teaching you this semester. And with my ocular limitations, I witnessed firsthand your glazed, uncomprehending expressions. So understand, that's where, I can't tell this class. Oh, don't sell yourself short, Mr. Coates. I truly believe that you can. That, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, so little history on this film. The director wanted to shoot something in a very particular style of a 1970s film, to the point where he even wanted the mixer, David Schwartz, to record on tape originally. David did a test of digital versus tape. Producers couldn't tell the difference, went with digital. But the director still wanted him to record in the same way that a film from the 70s would be. So it was completely boom. 95% of it was just boom and some plant mics. So it was typically the boom operator and the utility for this. I was on half of the film, so this scene, and myself out there swinging between people or staying on one person. So I think that depending on what was happening, I think the boom op was on Paul for all of Paul's stuff, and then I was jumping between the kids, I think, but I forget at the moment. But because, again, they're performing the entire scene from beginning to end, or parts of it from one point to another, we typically stayed on the same person. That way they had the entire performance the entire time. In terms of plant mics, I don't think we get particularly wide in this scene, but we had a plant mic. We put a lavalier mic that's right behind here and is taped up right here, so that if we went too wide, actually this might, I think we went even wider than this. That way we could still get him at the podium, because the boom mic just wouldn't be as crisp as the plant mic would be in a situation like this. Yes.
So go back to your original. Keep it more sauce. You have to sweep over and you have to go back to your sauce.
Yeah, so something like that in a wide, if you know you're going to be in a wide shot, you're just going to, right. He comes in, he says the line, and then he lands at the podium. Or rather, he comes in, he puts down the test, and then he lands at the podium, and for the rest of the scene, he's at the podium. The question was about sources, about jumping between sources. And again, that is for wide shots, and they shot things in a certain way that things were broken up fairly evenly in this film, so we didn't have to worry too much about going from absolute beginning to absolute end of the scene. But I believe we picked him up on the boom as he came in, said his line, and then if you listen to the film, and actually the film was mixed in a mono mix. So most films are mixed in 5.1, so 2 in the front, or 3 in the front, 2 in the back, and a subwoofer. This was simply just front speaker, that was it. So we picked him up on the boom coming in, and I think if you listen to it, he sounds a little distant as he's whistling. Let's listen to it again, shall we? So I think we let that go in favor of getting the sound of the papers getting slammed on the desk. And then when, in the wide shot, when he would go to the desk, just because we literally could not get a boom into the shot, then we just picked him up on the lav mic. But then knew that they were going to go in tighter and then even tighter. So then we were reliant on the boom for the rest of that. But you have to be able to give them something. Because if you just back what we call flag pulling it, which is pull next to you, Mike pointed out, and they go into editorial and they go, so why couldn't we hear him? You have to give them something at the very least. Yes?
Potentially dumb question. Did you ever record in just whistling, isolated, and then just letting the papers on the desk, or was it always?
I think it was always combined. The action is simple enough. And what I always tell people is, if they're ever worried about an environment, does it look like, if it sounds echoey, like if they were to film something in here, and we have a lot of reverberation, does it look like an area that would have reverberation in it? If somebody's doing an action and we're seeing it on camera, does it look like they're doing the action, or are they doing the action? Does it make sense that they're doing it? So in that instance, what you're asking about, he was whistling and he was putting it down, nobody was talking over it, and we were seeing it the entire time. So no, there was no need to do it separately, to do the action separate from the whistling at all. But if for whatever reason, the kids were talking during it, then that would be something that they would probably have him not whistle and not do most of the action unless it was something that was directly on camera. That way we could get the audio clean of just the kids. It was also a one camera shoot as well, which is fairly abnormal at this point. So it was only one camera the entire time. Normally, or not normally, but what's typical at this point is 2 cameras. So sometimes it'll be a wide and tight on person. Sometimes it'll be coverage on 2 different people. So this is a little different, both good and bad. It means that you can't just, it means that you have to focus and have to be perfect, I would say, on whatever the shot is at the time. Let's go over this.
What happened? Randy, we just called up and said you guys didn't show up. He's crazy now.
You got robbed.
What?
Who were they?
Who's who?
The guy in the shelters.
Are you asking me? How would I know?
Tell me though. Your son's how?
Baby, I'm serious.
You fucking
I didn't fucking let you up.
privately back. Get out.
So good relations with production. So jumping back to one particular shot here, you can see a lot of the set deck in the shot. There's a lot of, I'm not going to find it, am I? Yeah, close. Oh, there it is. All right. So a lot of chairs, a lot of set deck, and this particular DP loved to put lights on the floor pointing up for some reason. So there's a lot of people, a lot of action, and 2 boom operators out there, myself and Pete Stevenson. And so we had to make sure that we had a good position wherever we were. And that meant that sometimes if wherever the camera was, we would ask set deck to move things aside. Or we'd ask the electrics if we could move a light if it wasn't doing anything for a shot. Also, and this goes back to the pre-production thing, Jenna's outfits in pre-production were a lot of crop tops and tight pants. And Kevin Parker, the mixer, talked to wardrobe about it and went, if you do this, if you don't give her any sort of jacket or anything like that, we're never going to be able to put a lab mic on her, and that's really going to limit what we're going to be able to do. So most of her outfits involved jackets or sweatshirts throughout the production because they had that conversation beforehand. The wardrobe designer went to the director and said, hey, is it okay if we add this stuff? And the director said, yeah, that's fine. That's great. So these are questions you have to ask, knowing what you're going to be dealing with throughout the rest of production. Yes. The question is about is there anything that the art department can do to help sound? No. Yes. What? What?
I actually hear it. I did tell it and we got bumpy, and I'm like, oh.
Well, yes. Sorry. There's when building sets. No, build the set. I mean, again, to come back to the water in between the rocks analogy, you guys have to do what you have to do. Don't take everybody's needs into account. You have to do what you have to do based on what the set designer wants you to do.
Yeah, like put a bowl of apples on the table and hide away.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, that is definitely something that happens on occasion. We will, especially with desks, sometimes we'll hide mics on a desk and we'll say, hey, is it okay if we throw this under these papers? Like, yeah, cool, great, fantastic. In terms of builds, no, build what you have to. Materials don't really matter. If you can take the glass out, as long as the glass is removable, but it also depends on the director too. Because this all comes down to if the director sees something and he's like, why is that like that? And again, it all depends on the director. I mean, if I had it my way, yeah, everything would have a removable glass. It would only be canvases because then we wouldn't have to worry about certain things. But it also depends on what production wants things to look like. And I don't want to be the reason that things change based on that. My philosophy is always a fly below the radar. Like, I don't want to cause waves. I want to do my job. I'll talk to the different departments if I need something, hopefully minimal. But removable glass is the biggest thing. Removable glass and just the ability to move a desk, not drill a desk into the ground. That's also big. I can't think of any other examples in particular, but do what you have to do first in order to get your job done. We will figure out something, we'll figure out a solution later for our needs. Yes?
You're fairly bar match. They say what my and la. How do you please get him out? You stick back down. They where that go back.
The question is about how do you reduce reverberation? Would that be ambient noise? It goes back to what I said earlier about does it look like we're shooting in the location that we're shooting in? Because if it does, then yes, we're going to see that it has high ceilings. We're going to see that it's a large space. I mean, if you're trying to pretend that this is a small living room or a small dining room, that would be different. Because now it's like, why does the dining room that has, 7-foot ceilings sound like a cathedral? That kind of thing.
That's thought if you're shooting. That's bad. It's so. Here's the other.
You either seek out whatever the noise is, or you put a note in your notes and when you send it over to editorial saying, this is just how it sounds. Sometimes there's only so much you can do. If the downstairs neighbors aren't being compliant, then We were shooting out on a street in Orange, Mass, on a TV show a couple of years ago, and one of the businesses was angry that production wasn't going to pay them $250,000 to shut down for the day. So they decided to play music as loud as they could on their outdoor speakers. So, all you can really do is go, they're not going to do anything about it. And then production's like, all right, we're moving to the end of the street, guys. And that's the best you can do. So if you're shooting it, if it sounds like the location that it's in and you've turned everything off and you're still getting something that you can't control, you've done the best you can to a point. Not everything is going to be perfect. If you ever listen to raw audio from anything, you'll be shocked at the amount of issues with it. At some point, put on a pair of headphones when you watch a film. Not noise canceling, but like decent studio headphones, and just listen to how a film sounds. And you'll be shocked by the amount of times that you hear a track come up and come back down, or that you hear ambience come up and come back down. It's something you don't really hear on speakers because speakers cover up a lot of that, but studio headphones will isolate that stuff in very particular ways. And because most people are listening to it either on really bad AirPods or on TV speakers or on their phone, they can cover up a lot of that stuff. Law and Order. If you just watch Law and Order on TV, because it's shot very, very quickly and they have a lot of episodes to shoot, if they're walking down the street, if people aren't talking, you'll hear ambient in the background. As soon as they start talking, you'll hear that noise floor come up as they start talking because they just got to shoot it. They got labs on. Come on, we got 8 more pages we got to shoot today, guys. Got to knock it out quick. All right. See, I have one more. Whoops.
Standing up. That's a good one. For original Providence. Last year, you big brain. You don't skim. My dad, it's just like you. Well, here. Why don't you show some weapons for daddy that you do? Wait, God.
So,
You don't know anything about me. Do you know anything? 16 years old doesn't even know her power. She's about you can hear it. But he doesn't even like her. Hey, look. Hands off me. What do you want? Let's find out. What are you gonna do, huh? This. You know the rules. No powers in here. Well, definitely no fight.
All right. So majority of this was boom, but I figured I'd use it to talk about lab placement because they were all lab no matter what we did anyway. And because there is action, you have to be careful about where you put labs. So I think typically for Blue, it was a mic was between 2 buttons and the pack was just clipped to her back. I'm forgetting his name at the moment, but he had ankle strap and a mic on his chest. Henry was a unique situation because his pants were so tight that I had to talk to wardrobe before we began production, and we had to sew the mic into the seam of his pants because we could not get I have a wand. I'll show you guys later. We could not even get a wand down the pants. So we had to sew it into the pants, and every day he would put that on, and then I think it was a mic on the chest. And Anya was, see her outfit. Hers was, pack was underneath her armpit, and then we had a company down in New York make us a small custom cable that would go down and then would attach to her bra. So because her jacket was so small and her top was so tight and there was nowhere to hide a pack on her ankle, our only other option was to hide it in the place with the loosest clothing. And I'm forgetting somebody. Oh yeah, Maisie. Maisie's was just want to say that was just, yeah, it was just on her chest and then a clip to her back because her shirt's very, very baggy. So, and because there's so much movement in this too, so much action, you have to be careful because if your normal situation is clipping to the back, and now all of a sudden an actor's getting pushed onto their back, you have to move it because there's potential that they could get hurt or that your lav mic could get damaged. So you have to, it's part of watching a shot, part of understanding what the action is going to be, and then moving your stuff around accordingly. If you want any deeper dives into sound, I recommend going onto YouTube and looking up field mic shootouts or lav mic shootouts. They're usually really good videos. You put on a pair of headphones, and somebody will usually do something consistently. They'll read out of a book or something like that, or they'll talk outside in a controlled environment. So you'll be able to hear the differences between lav mics or boom mics. Sometimes both, sometimes it's just one or the other. Those are really good. Gear is going to change from person to person. What people like is what they like. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the most expensive. It's just what sounds good to them. So if something sounds good to you, but these people don't use it, it doesn't matter because it's about the results that you get. Sound sales, Gotham Sound out of New York is someone I use a lot. Talamus is a local one up in Waltham, Mass. And True Audio has places out of Nashville, Georgia, Toronto, and LA. Facebook's terrible. We all know that across the board. Apologies. But if you're ever looking for used sound equipment, the production sound equipment swap, production sound mixer equipment swap is a good resource for something like that. But like all things, I beg you to be very, very careful, do your research, especially on the person, so you do not get scammed. And then if you really want to go deep, jwsoundgroup.net is just forums, but it's people asking very, very particular questions about very, very particular pieces of equipment. It's not always in there, and people can be a little cantankerous about things. And if you have beginner questions, sometimes they'll give you a bunch of shit, but you'll be able to find answers to a certain point within there. Free stuff. Free programs, mostly. Wave Agent is a great sound file utility program. I use it a lot, especially when I'm making sound reports. I can pull it up on my computer later and show you how it works. You can, if you know what a polyphonic wave file is, it's basically a single file that has all your audio files embedded within it. And when it's dumped into editorial, they all come up on the timeline. You can break that apart. You can take stuff out. You can change time code. You can change information on it. So it's a really, really robust program. I use it a lot. Audacity is a free audio editing program. It has these limitations, but if you're trying to do simple editing or stuff on set, then it works great. Yes?
You make you bid a lot.
Yes, I will talk to someone about sending, just about making, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll make sure that it's available to somebody, that it gets out to everybody. Freesound.org, it's just free sounds. If you're ever doing any audio editing, boatload of stuff in there. And then Free Music Archive, it's kind of janky, but it's got loads of free music in it. You just can't, I think the one limitation is they do not want you to use it commercially. 10 minutes, all right. I'm almost done with my presentation. Final thoughts, show up on time. Regardless of what you're doing, show up on time. Being clean, prepared, and friendly. You'll be shocked that this is still a job. This is still a job. This is still something that you're getting hired for and paid for. This is not fun time. It can be fun, but you are still on the clock during this. Treat it like a job. Treat it like it is your occupation. And the clean thing, you'd be shocked by the amount of people that show up and just didn't put deodorant on that morning. It's a little gross. Offer to help to a certain point. If you see somebody struggling with something, even though it's out of your department, just offer to help. Sometimes they'll say no. Sometimes it's a political thing. Sometimes they want to see production, watch them struggle, so therefore they can hire another person. It's a bigger thing, but if you just see somebody, just get mad. If they make yourself the important cog in the machine. If you make yourself a necessity, it's going to be harder for them. It's going to be easier for you to find work. Not harder for them to hire somebody else necessarily. It's going to be easier for you to find work. At the moment, again, there's not a lot going on in the area, but there is The Walking Dead, and I have worked with enough video playback guys over the years that they know me, and John Cobbs, who is on The Walking Dead doing video playback at the moment, needs a video utility, so he's been bringing me in a handful of days. And that's only because I have taken the time between doing sound stuff on set to go like, hey, what is this? Hey, how does that work exactly? So he knows that I know the very basics, that I can help him out with something like that. And he knows that I know how a set works. So he says, go talk to the locations about getting us a tent, or go talk to the grips about getting us an Apple box for, such and such, or talk to the electrics about getting us electricity for the director's monitor. He knows he has somebody to rely on. That's making yourself an important cog. That's the good stuff that continues to get you work. If you need equipment, borrow before you buy. If you need to buy equipment, buy used. There's a lot of those resources. Gotham Sound, True Audio, and the Facebook group, they have used pages on their site for equipment. A lot of people who do audio baby their equipment. I know I do too, certain things. And it's fairly robust. Field stuff is fairly robust. You can beat it. You can hammer nails with an SM58, for God's sakes. So don't buy new if you don't have to. And it's also not significantly cheaper. It's going to be moderately cheaper than just buying new. Safety. We all heard about rust, but the thing is, you've heard about rust. You haven't heard about all the other things that have happened to all the other people. Have you heard about the accident down in Georgia that happened a month ago with scaffolding? I'm seeing some heads nodding, and I'm seeing a lot of blank looks for everybody else. Exactly. You know why? Because there wasn't an actor involved, but there were workers. Safety. Safety is the most important thing. And I will tell you I can't tell you the amount of producers that have told me the bullshit line, safety is the most important thing to us. No, it's not. Do you know what the most important thing is? It's getting the day done and under budget. You have to be aware of your own safety and the safety of your fellow coworkers. If it looks unsafe, do not do it. Don't do it. I was on a short film years ago where after 14-hour shoot, they wanted to start shooting a knife fight. Everybody's exhausted. Not doing this. I'm going home. You guys can record without sound. I don't want to be involved with this. I see where this is going. Not happening. There are potential accidents every day. Every day. And the only reason we're hearing about rust is because it's a cross-section of all these different things. Focus on your relationships out of work. If you do spend any time in this, the industry has a high rate of divorce, a very high rate of divorce. Films might be your passion. You might want it to be your life. Don't make it your everything. Just if someone offers you a job on a Saturday when you have plans with friends, do the plans with friends. On your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about the money that you made on that job. You're going to be thinking about your friends. Gear doesn't matter. It's the results. It doesn't matter. I can't tell you the amount of jank rigs we've put together for dumb things that have worked, and we're like, Jesus, how did this work? But it did. It's a combination of, skill in a hefty combination of luck. It's just movies. It's not brain surgery. You're just making silly little movies. Nothing matters. It's just movies. All right. Open it up. Hit me with it. What do you got?
So, like the modern editing, that's whatever. How important is it still do like 30 seconds of tone at the end?
Not very. I'll do on a movie, never. Almost never. If something changes mid-shot, like a huge air conditioner turns on or something like that, and they're on their final take for something, sometimes I'll, at the end of it, But that also falls into politics as well. Are you willing to hold up production at the end of it? Because everyone's going to hate you. You're going to have to ask if they can do something like, if you're going to have to ask the first assistant director if this is okay. And they're going to say, well, yes, but we need to move on. We need to get the shot before the sun goes down, or something like that. So I would say that in my experience, it's usually to placate the client on a commercial or a corporate video more than it is on a film, to be honest with you. Because hopefully you have control over your environment, so there's no real change in anything anyway. And typically when it goes into sound editing, that they're going to be doing stuff anyway. Yes?
Going back to the scene with the making like here, and this is kind of the question I guess applies to a watch crew, not the sound, but when there's a mirror on set, is there an immediate question to a set decorator if does the mirror need to be here, or to start from the assumption that there will be a mirror here, we can say one is the mirror is don't bad. Well, when it comes to mirror, what on that?
I assume that it's been approved by both the production designer and the director. So you're not going to have the ability to move it, but what you are going to have the ability to do is at least angle it in different directions so it's hopefully not catching somebody. What was that? Yeah. Tape balls, there it is. Yeah, tape balls. There's a film that probably will never see the light of day that I worked on a couple of years ago where they did a big set or used for multiple scenes, big scenes. And they had a full standing mirror right in the middle of it. I can't tell you how much of the bane of my existence that mirror was, to the point where I offered to buy it off of production when we were done so I could smash it. I hated it so much. It caused so much chaos for me. So, no, I assume, again, being in the water between the rocks, you can move things, you can alter things, manipulate things, but you cannot change things unless it's so catastrophic that they're like, yeah, we haven't started shooting yet. Let's change it now.
So the question, can you get off? I should think that after getting food.
Yes.
So, make source that or
That's a lot of theoretical. Two people in the front, what are they doing? What ways are they looking? I hate car work. Everybody hates car work. Anytime you see car work in a TV show or film, know that the entire crew is miserable the entire time. Everybody hates it. Car work it's so theoretical. If it's two people sitting in the front, are they both staring directly out the window the entire time? If that's the case, maybe they have a lav mic on. Maybe we put one in the visor that's pointing down towards them. Maybe we put two things on the floor pointing up towards them. It all depends on the vehicle. It depends on the size of the vehicle. It depends on how loud the vehicle is. So it depends on a lot of different factors. I know that's a kind of a non-answer to your question, unfortunately, but you show up, you see the vehicle, and you go, all right, well, also, what is the camera seeing? Because if your plan was to put it in the visors and suddenly we're seeing both the visors, then your plan is shot to hell. Now you got to come up with something else. So I usually walk into it with at least a plan A, B, and C for how I'm going to do something. And I think that concludes this. So thank you.